What if I told you the biggest difference between winners and everyone else is not talent, not IQ, not luck, not rich parents, not having perfect timing? Those things can help, but psychology shows something deeper. Many successful people win because they think differently long before results appear. They see pain differently, failure differently, time differently, themselves differently. And because they think differently, they behave differently. That behavior compounds quietly until the world calls it success. Let me tell you a story. There were two friends named Omar and Hassan. Same neighborhood, same school, same age, same opportunities. Both dreamed of building successful lives. Both started with little money. Both were intelligent enough. But 10 years later, their lives looked completely different. Omar owned a growing business, had discipline, peace, and respect. Hassan was still talking about what he could have done. People called Omar lucky, but luck was only the final chapter they noticed. The real story began years earlier, in the mind. When they were young, both friends failed often. They applied for jobs and got rejected, tried ideas that didn't work, made embarrassing mistakes. Hassan interpreted failure like this: "This proves I'm not good enough." Omar interpreted failure like this: "This gives me data." That one difference changed everything. Psychology calls this mindset framing. Events matter, but the meaning you assign to events matters more. If failure means identity damage, you avoid challenge. If failure means feedback, you improve faster. Hassan feared looking foolish, so he delayed action. He researched endlessly, waited for perfect timing, talked big with friends, protected his ego carefully. Omar looked foolish often. He launched imperfect ideas, asked dumb questions publicly, worked beginner jobs without shame, learned while others judged. This is the first psychology of success. Winners value growth more than image. Many people protect reputation and lose years. Winners are willing to look inexperienced long enough to become exceptional. Now here's the second difference. When both men earned small amounts of money, Hassan upgraded lifestyle immediately. New phone, fancy dinners, status purchases. Omar invested in skills, courses, books, better tools, mentors, savings. Why? Because winners think in delayed rewards. Psychology calls this future orientation. Most people trade tomorrow for pleasure today. Winners often sacrifice comfort now to multiply comfort later. This does not mean never enjoying life. It means understanding that seeds matter more than appearances. Years passed. Omar's skills became income. Hassan's spending became memories. Now let's go deeper emotionally. One night, Hassan admitted privately, "I feel behind everyone." Many people know this pain. They compare highlight reels and feel small. Omar once felt it too, but he trained a different habit. Instead of comparing himself to others, he compared himself to yesterday. Was I stronger than last month? Smarter than last year? More disciplined than before? That shift protected peace. This is the third psychology of success. Winners compete mostly with their former selves. External comparison creates envy. Internal comparison creates progress. Another major difference appeared during hard seasons. When business slowed, Omar felt fear but kept structure. He woke early, worked daily, adapted plans. When life became hard for Hassan, he lost routine entirely. Late mornings, escapism, complaining. waiting for motivation. This matters because winners understand something critical. Mood is unreliable. Systems are powerful. If you only act when inspired, success becomes accidental. If you act through systems, success becomes more likely. Omar did not feel motivated every day. He simply respected routine more than emotion. Now here's a painful truth. Many people secretly want the image of success more than the process of success. They want admiration, but not repetition. Freedom, but not discipline. Results, but not boredom. Victory, but not sacrifice. Winners accept the unglamorous middle. The lonely mornings, the slow growth, the unnoticed effort. That is where most people quit. Years later, Hassan asked Omar, "When did things finally change for you?" Omar smiled and answered, "They changed long after I stopped needing immediate proof." Powerful answer, because success often grows invisibly first. Roots before fruit. So how do winners think differently? Failure is feedback, not identity. Growth matters more than looking impressive. Invest in future rewards. Compete with your past self. Build systems stronger than moods. Stay consistent when results are hidden. And remember this emotional truth. Many people are not failing because they lack ability. They are failing because they quit during the invisible season, the season when effort looks pointless, the season winners survive. In the end, Hassan learned late what Omar learned early. Life rarely gives trophies for potential. It rewards repeated action guided by strong psychology. So if you feel behind today, do not panic. You may only need to think differently before you can live differently. Because winners are not always born ahead. Often, they simply refuse to stay where they started. What if I told you many people lose before they even begin? Not because life stopped them, not because they lacked talent, not because the market was bad, not because someone else had an advantage. They lose in private, inside their own minds. They lose when they decide rejection would destroy them. They lose when they believe one failure defines them. They lose when they need instant proof before continuing. They lose when comfort becomes more important than growth. And by the time the world sees no results, the real defeat happened months earlier. That is why psychology matters more than motivation, because the mind you carry determines the life you build. Let me tell you a story. There was a young woman named Nadia. She worked in a small office, earning enough to survive, but not enough to breathe freely. Every lunch break, she watched videos about business, success, freedom, and self-made people. She had ideas: a handmade jewelry brand, an online store, a content page, freelance design work. Her notebook was full of dreams. But years passed. Nothing launched. Whenever she came close, fear appeared. What if no one buys? What if people laugh? What if I fail publicly? What if I waste money? What if I'm not special enough? So she delayed. Research became hiding. Planning became comfort. Dreaming became addiction. Then one evening, she met an older shop owner named Yusuf while buying tea. He noticed her notebook and asked about it. She nervously explained all her ideas. He smiled and asked one sharp question. "How many have you tested?" Nadia looked down. "None." Yusuf nodded gently. "Then you don't have business problems," he said. "You have fear problems." That truth hurt, but it healed. Psychology explains this clearly. Many people confuse lack of progress with lack of opportunity, but often the real obstacle is emotional avoidance. They avoid embarrassment, avoid uncertainty, avoid looking foolish, avoid the pain of being average at first. So they stay in imagination where success feels safe and failure cannot touch them. This is the first psychology of winners. Winners are willing to be beginners in public. They understand every expert once looked clumsy, every business started small, every speaker once stuttered, every athlete once struggled, every creator once had no audience. Nadia realized she was protecting ego more than pursuing growth. So she made one small decision: launch ugly. No perfect branding, no perfect timing, no perfect confidence. She posted 10 jewelry pieces online with basic photos. Only 3 people liked the post. No sales. Old Nadia would have taken that as humiliation. New Nadia treated it as data. Better photos needed, wrong audience targeted, pricing unclear. That mindset shift changed everything. The second psychology of winners: they interpret slow results as information, not insult. Most people personalize neutral events. No sales equals I'm a failure. No reply equals I'm not worthy. Low views equals I have no talent. Winners ask, what can this teach me? Emotion says quit. Psychology says adjust. Nadia improved photos, learned marketing, changed descriptions, studied customer behavior. Weeks later, 1 order came, then 3, then 12. Not magical, but real. Now let's go deeper emotionally. As success slowly grew, something surprising happened. Her friends mocked her. Still doing your little side hobby? Probably won't last. You think you're an entrepreneur now? This crushed her. Many people can survive failure easier than ridicule because rejection wounds the ego. Nadia wanted to stop. Yusuf told her something unforgettable. When you change, some people feel left behind. Powerful truth. Psychology calls this social resistance to identity shifts. When you grow, you remind others they could grow too. Some become inspired, others become uncomfortable. Winners expect misunderstanding. They do not require universal approval. This is the third psychology of winners. They choose respect from the future over approval from the present. Nadia continued. Months later, her side income matched her salary. A year later, she left the office. The same people who mocked her began asking for advice. This often happens. People laugh at seeds, then admire trees. Another difference between winners and others is this. Most people ask, what if it fails? Winners also ask, what if it works? That second question creates courage. Fear imagines pain. Vision imagines possibility. Both shape action. Nadia began using it daily. What if this ad works? What if this skill changes everything? What if consistency wins slowly? What if my future thanks me? Hope became fuel. Now, here's a deeper truth. Winners are not always more talented. They are often more emotionally regulated. They can feel doubt without stopping, feel fear without retreating, feel criticism without collapsing, feel boredom without quitting. That stability creates extraordinary outcomes over time. So, how do winners think differently? They launch before perfect confidence arrives. They treat slow results as feedback. They accept being misunderstood. They imagine success, not only failure. They act through discomfort consistently. They protect vision more than ego. And remember this emotional truth. Many people stay stuck not because life denied them greatness, but because they kept negotiating with fear. In the end, Nadia discovered something beautiful. She did not need a new personality. She needed a new relationship with discomfort. So if you feel behind today, do not ask, am I talented enough? Ask something wiser. Am I brave enough to begin imperfectly? Because success often belongs to the person who starts while still shaking. What if I told you many winners once felt like complete failures? The millionaire who was once rejected, the athlete who once lost badly, the leader who once doubted themselves, the creator nobody noticed, the student called average, the dreamer people laughed at. We often meet successful people at the finish line and wrongly assume they were always ahead. But psychology reveals something different. Winners are not people who never fall. They are people who learned how to rise differently. That difference changes everything, because most people think success is about getting opportunities. Often, it is about responding to pain. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man named Daniel. Daniel grew up hearing one sentence again and again: "You'll never become much." Sometimes from relatives, sometimes from teachers, sometimes from people smiling while saying it. Those words sank deep. By the time he became an adult, he looked normal on the outside, but inside he carried invisible chains. He feared trying hard. He avoided attention. He expected failure before starting. He laughed at his own dreams before others could. That is what repeated criticism can do. It becomes an inner voice. Daniel worked a small job he disliked. Every evening he walked past a gym owned by a respected businessman named Marcus. Marcus had built companies, mentored youth, and carried himself with calm power. Daniel admired him secretly. One rainy night, Daniel finally entered the gym, not to train, to ask one question. How do people become successful when they weren't born special? Marcus studied him carefully and replied, "First, stop believing successful people were born special." Daniel stood silent. Marcus continued, "Most winners I know started wounded." That sentence stunned him. Marcus pointed around the gym. The strongest people here often came because they once felt weak. The disciplined ones once lived in chaos. The confident ones once felt invisible. Then he said something Daniel never forgot. Pain can become poison or power. Winners choose differently. Psychology supports this deeply. Two people can suffer the same setback. One decides, life is against me. The other decides, this will train me. Same pain, different meaning, different future. This is the first psychology of winners. They turn pain into fuel instead of identity. Many people wear suffering like a permanent name. I'm the rejected one. I'm unlucky. I'm behind. I'm broken. Winners feel pain but refuse to become it. Daniel decided to change one thing. Instead of saying, I was underestimated, he said, I was trained by resistance. Words matter. Language shapes identity. The second psychology of winners, they trust process when emotions are unstable. Daniel began training at Marcus's gym every morning before work. At first, it was miserable. Cold mornings, weak body, slow progress. Some days he felt motivated, many days he didn't. But Marcus told him, feelings are weather, standards are climate, meaning moods change daily, principles stay. So Daniel stopped asking, do I feel like it, and started asking, who am I becoming if I keep going? That shift transformed him. Soon he applied the same mindset elsewhere. He studied business at night, saved money consistently, learned sales skills, networked despite anxiety. Nothing glamorous, just repeated effort. Months later, life still looked mostly the same. This is where many quit, because success often hides in boring seasons. No applause, no dramatic breakthroughs, no visible proof, only repetition. But winners understand the third psychology of success. Invisible progress is still progress. Roots grow before fruit appears. Daniel kept going. Now, here is the emotional part many need to hear. One day, Daniel's old relative visited and mocked him again. Still chasing dreams, he laughed. The younger Daniel would have collapsed internally, but this time, Daniel smiled calmly because he had changed privately, and private growth creates public peace. He no longer needed approval from people who never gave it. This is another winner trait. They stop asking doubters for permission. Years passed. Daniel eventually launched a small fitness apparel brand. It struggled early, then improved, then expanded. Later, he opened his own training center for young people with low confidence. One afternoon, a nervous teenager asked him, "How do I become successful if nobody believes in me?" Daniel smiled, because life had come full circle. He answered, "Belief from others is helpful. Belief in yourself is enough to begin." Powerful truth. Too many people wait for support before movement. Winners often move unsupported. Now, let's make this practical. How do winners think differently? They use pain as fuel, not identity. They trust routine more than mood. They continue during invisible progress. They stop needing doubters' approval. They measure growth privately first. They rise after setbacks faster each time. And remember this emotional truth. You may feel behind right now, but being behind is not being finished. You may have been doubted, but doubt from others is not destiny. You may have failed before, but failure is an event, not your name. In the end, Daniel learned something beautiful. The voices that once tried to shrink him accidentally trained the strength that built him. So if life has hurt you, do not waste the pain. Let it sharpen discipline. Let it deepen wisdom. Let it awaken hunger. Because sometimes the people who were told they would become nothing become the ones nobody can ignore.